The following episode was recorded last week, but due to production difficulties stemming from Mother Nature, you are seeing this episode now. Alan and Mother Nature have officially made out their differences from what I've heard, believe it or not. We shall actually see about that. Enjoy.
You are a community club. TCFC is a community-built club. And it will always
team
be.
is pitching a plan to revitalize a historic gem in our community, and it's a project that's driven by their passion for their sport.
State of disrepair right now. Concrete sort of crumbling a little bit. The bleachers.
Football club. We're at Keywood Stadium. This stadium was built in 1936.
Indeed, it's amazing to see just how far they have come. Years ago, they were playing over at Gas Tech, and now so many people.
45 seconds until we score the goal to really settle in. The post, and Stephon St. Louis is there to clear it.
In the background, you know, they give us the 12th man. You know, it's also
fans to watch. We're happy to put on a show for all these guys that came out to see us play.
When we move, they move, and just communication is the biggest part.
Great. I think we could have earned a shutout earlier against Sparta in the year.
Awesome. You know, the atmosphere is amazing. Monday with the right foot. It's in the back of the net.
People know us now. People know what to expect. Now we gotta take it to another level.
Look, city till I die. Say hi to the bad fella. Hella smooth with the flow, so grab your umbrella. Yeah, we make it rain, bring the pain. Things are changing. Power rankings take a spanking, got them rearranging. They said Denise are all stars till we deboed all y'all. Ball a fist and brawl y'all. Yeah, we pissed off all y'all, and we thin but still winning. Grinning at the top, got a pundit head spinning, make that chin pop. Blue collar clocking in. They been mocking us for days till they step into the key and they been leaving with a fade. Doubting us, but then they swayed. Say we pout, they throwing shade. You will never have what we have, time to get the blade. Cause we'll be cutting them up, yeah, we're shutting them up. We ain't bluffing, tell you something, better knuckle up. Y'all ain't nothing but chumps, we put in overtime. We'll be putting in work until it's closing time. City till I die, talking blood, sweat, and tears. City till I die, we've been building this for years. City
Happy Thursday at the time of recording this, motherfuckers, one and all, or whenever you're going to be checking out this podcast. We got everybody popping in slowly but surely, and it's actually great that Adam has just popped in because we can get straight to business. I'll hand it off to you, bud. Yesterday was fucking wild, wasn't it?
Yeah, big news obviously dropping with everything that's happening with the club. Really, I don't know if it came out of nowhere or if anybody kind of got the feeling that it was coming. I mean, there were certainly some discussions about it. You know, you kind of heard things on the back channels, and yeah, it finally came to fruition and became a reality that NGS will be having a bus trip to Indy come September 30th. So, yeah, man, tickets are already on sale for that. So head to noonelikes.us and you can click on the shop there and pick up tickets. I believe they're for $85, which includes your bus seat, and then the ticket to the Indy 11 match that the city will be playing in. And you also have the opportunity also to get a nice Rouge Rovers merch bundle, shirt, and a sticker. So, yeah, make sure. I mean, that's massive news that dropped yesterday. That's what you were referring to, right?
Amongst other things, I mean, in this economy that we live in, regardless of your affiliation, a good deal is a good deal.
Good deal's a good deal.
Now, I always prefer to kind of travel alone or in small numbers, but if you're looking to go to Indy and not want to take your vehicle because it fucking costs a lot, as someone who knows he's got to get his brakes done soon, and you want to just get there and imbibe if you want to, though be warned, the prices in Indy for bevies are, regardless of alcoholic or non-alcoholic, are yeast. Yeah, man. September 30th, you said, right?
September 30th, yeah.
Any details on logistics as to when this the 2023 bus is taken off from location and said forth, or is that to be determined as we get closer to the dates?
I think it's taken off. I think it's taken off from the clubhouse actually. But if you go click on that link in the store on the NGS website, it'll give like a little short, kind of rundown of what's happening. So.
Also, stay attention to Adam's both the NGS as well as Adam's Twitter with details on that. You mentioned that the bus is taking off from the clubhouse on like the 10 a.m. ish, right? Because if I recall correctly, United Palace is playing at Manchester United. Yeah, I'm going to be there that day, so at least I get to heckle everybody when they take off the bus.
So you get to go on the bus, maybe. Yeah, so you're all set, dude. You're all set. I ain't
going on the bus. But I'll give everybody the commiserations as they're getting onto the bus and then taking off the bus. I mean, commiserations can be whatever you want. It could be a wave. I'm not gonna do the blowy kiss thing. Fuck that. But maybe you get a middle finger and all of that. Alan, I like
how Alan's jumping in now and probably has like a nice little some notes ready to go. We're going to be talking Trevor James here. The big announcement yesterday with that, and we're actually talking about the bus trip to kick things off tonight.
Well, you got to start off with the most important stuff.
That's right. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's really a no-brainer. Really,
a 4-hour ride to Indy. All the beer will be gone by Toledo.
Can all of you still not that done those bus trips in years past, like Cleveland and Milwaukee and everything like that? Can y'all still hang in the levels that you did, or are you?
That's a good question.
Or are y'all just prepping 5 days in advance for this shit and then going to have buckets
we're pretty soft now, so.
Fuck, man. I can't even think about starting to drink anymore now. And I look back at old days, I'm just like, fuck.
I think people will be drinking lemonade and Diet
coffee.
Pepsi.
God, just fucking. There's just an energy, a Cintron, literally like a thing of Cintron, like the fucking Jaeger things you see at the bar. I mean, the club's got to take advantage of that sponsorship deal as much as they can.
That's right.
On that.
Give us a case of Cintron and. There'll be a case of Citron in the bus when we get back to Detroit.
I ain't gonna guarantee any of the Fago because I might knock that shit out these Saturday mornings. I'm going to clubhouse brunch if I'm not drinking coffee. So yeah, the return of the bus, September 30th, India way. So, if there are any updates on that as we get closer, Adam will keep us in the loop there. But yeah, $85 for a bus. Ticket, merch, 2023.
Well, the merch is separate. Merch is separate, but you can buy a bundle though. The merch.
Still, $85 for a bundle. So, all right.
What a deal!
We satisfied the Irish Frenchman's request of talking about the bus. We weren't able to do a second request, which is to translate the entire podcast into French.
But he'll just have to cope, as he gets used to his new environs as a French citizen.
Les autobus.
Les autobus.
Les conducteurs de autobus. That's the Indianapolis.
I can't wait to hear his combined Irish and new French accent here.
Oh my god.
Mon Dieu. C'est horrible.
So, for all y'all that are wondering, what do you want to see first? That is speaking Irish influence, French influence, Irish, combined in English. If Jaime pops on, here's hoping he's got his power back. That could be a poll. 451det@gmail.com. Or even I think you can send messages because we've been getting the YouTube channel up and running. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the two of you were with me last night as a run of the mill meeting. We got this. We knew going into it the last week or two that it was going to be a Q&A with Trevor James, and it was going to be the FO, and it was okay. Run of the mill stuff. We've had Charleston happen. We've seen some team shape questions with the Vegas match, which we'll talk about after what we learned yesterday. But then earlier in the day, yesterday, we get an email. Owners meeting today, a big announcement. Mm-hmm. And knowing that, a big announcement from the club can be anything from we're doing a commercial with Stroh's to fucking Friendly the Bear stuffed animal things are out. Or we're delayed 3 hours because Alan pissed off Mother Nature. We're like, it could be anything. It could be it could be sure to drink more Brew Detroit because, that line from A Christmas Story is always going to stick in my fucking head.
I was hoping for the free beer all evening at Brew Detroit, but that didn't turn out to be true.
Thankfully, that was not the case.
Disappointed.
Also, shout out to the people at Brew Detroit that were working, that updated us on the food situation. The meat and cheese platter was this magnifique. There, Dennis, you happy? I'm speaking more French. But we got, as we were getting closer and closer to the meeting, we were starting to realize the magnitude of everything that was about to take place. And then the announcement came in. Alan, why don't you I know you kind of covered it a bit in the recap, but for those, now that we have a bit more free will and time to just kind of, we've had more time since then to take it all in, how we, fill people in again, and then also how you're feeling about it.
As I mentioned in the post-meeting recap, Sean Mann's CEO of the club immediately addressed this in the monthly owners meeting that Trevor James would become the club's new sporting director, which is a new position being created. And Tiffany Ebert James would also stay involved at an executive level as a VP for players and wellness, or I'm not sure if that's the precise title. I'd have to look at it, but
I'll take a look.
Both of them will continue their relationship with the club in different roles, and that was good because we knew that Trevor's contract was up at the end of this season. If that's correct, right? And
yeah.
So his status with the club was certainly something that was of concern. Both, at some point along the line was going to become a big topic. So whether that was going to be at the end of the season or towards the end of the season or after the season's over is so hard to tell. But that's all sorted now. And as sporting director, Trevor will direct the search for a new head coach, and so that's kind of the next big thing that the club will be working on. And during the course of the meeting, Trevor addressed that they were hoping to have someone in place by December to give that individual an opportunity to prepare for the next season.
Adam, how were your thoughts on it, especially with, obviously not just Trevor staying put and this new role, and it's also overseeing both the men and the women's side, but also the expansion of Tiffany's role. As I'm seeing right here in the club's thread of tweets that came out around the same time the announcement was being done, VP of Sporting and Wellness, Tiffany Ebert James, will be a strategic advisor to the sporting director, overseeing player wellness, negotiations, and budgeting, and logistics within all sporting areas. Your thoughts on that, and do you feel like it's almost as much important, maybe if not more important, that we're seeing the expansion of Tiffany's role as much as Trevor?
Yeah, I guess I'm relieved. I'm relieved that that the club finally addressed this. Because you don't see this often. And I mentioned this last night. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the recap or not, but you don't typically see professional head coaches in any sport, whether it be the MLB, NFL, NBA, or NHL, reach this point of the year without having a contract for the next season.
Yeah.
A coach never wants to, a coach, as much as a player, does not like that that insecurity, that lack of job security. It's not something that is wanted, and a coach never wants to be a lame duck too. They want to have some, they want to have that job security. They want to know that they're going to have a place. That is, if they're not going to retire. Obviously, we know Trevor isn't a young guy anymore. Not that he's really, really old or anything like that, but
he's been in it for a long, long time, both as a player and advisor, and now as a coach.
Absolutely. And you have to figure that he was kind of getting to the point too, where, how much longer does he want to, go on these road trips, conduct practices, fulfill everything that is on the, that is also on the GM side of things within a professional sports organization. I think that this was the best scenario possible, because, yeah, it's been a tough season this year, and Trevor does things that I think drives, some supporters crazy.
We'll get into that.
Which we'll get into. But for the very most part, where would this club be right now if not for Trevor and Tiffany James? Where would we be? Trevor undertook a massive, massive job coming out of the Ben Perman era, which was, a very, very popular era within, City. A head coach who a lot of City fans, that was probably the only coach they ever knew. And you're going into this new era. You're going into the professional ranks, not just going into the professional ranks with NISA, but also making that jump to USL and
doing it in 3 years.
And having the season that they did last year.
2 years, in fact, yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was, incredibly successful. And that wasn't just Trevor. That was absolutely 100% Tiffany as well. And like I said, this isn't getting done. City isn't what it is today. They don't make those all-important strides that they have made these past few years if not for Tiffany and Trevor James. And
yeah, absolutely. Because there was the desire to build out the club that way. Yep. But among the people running the club, they didn't have the experience of how to do that. No. And with Trevor and Tiffany's experience, vast experience, Trevor's been at virtually every level of the game. That provided someone to build a blueprint on how to go about this. We went from a club with virtually no infrastructure at all to a professional level club that not only is doing all the things a professional club should do, but striving to do them as well as we can possibly do them within our resource constraints. And I think it stacks up favorably against virtually every team in the league in terms of the kind of player support that we provide. Some places may have better facilities here or there. That's one thing. But in terms of the focus on player well-being, I would put that up against any team in the league.
You know,
Absolutely.
It was interesting because we got to hear both Trevor and Tiffany speak last night. And I think we've been having some questions going into, what was it, the last couple of weeks, especially the one we did before the Vegas match, about personnel and about a lot of things. And I think there's a couple things that stuck to me. When Trevor talked about coming in here and kind of not even being his one rule to the team is be on time. And then the rest of it falls upon the players to control themselves. And an ability, and he used the word conformity in the sense, I think, of being of like-mindedness, which when you heard that, and I think our little group of people that were sitting around together, when we heard that last night, I think whether we can be frustrated or not, I think that when you hear it that way, it kind of makes sense in some ways, I feel like. But then Tiffany also went into her mindset, her background, which is very unique, I think, in her position that she's in. And what was the line that she was saying? It's kind of like almost in a way, it's like military or prison in a sense.
Yeah, prison.
Where there's got to be here, got to wear this, these times, eating the things, controlling the things and all that.
Yeah, it's rather regimented, yes.
But she does it in a way that I don't see many, if anyone, give her any shit for it. Shows you she's good at it. And see them both, to see kind of a uniformity, I think, maybe as well as, because a lot of us have been asking about the women as well, with, in this past year that we had and the growth that was had to an extent with Dwayne's first season. Now that's fully under House James' umbrella to oversee the blueprint of whatever the long term, which you would think the long term for the women is Super League or wherever that becomes, whatever, and then that'll probably tie into when we're past out of Keyworth, when we're at our new whatever future home is.
And that's something that, I'm sorry, Garrett, go ahead and finish.
I was going to say and this is actually a good tie-in, I think, to get your guys' thoughts on it, because I know all of our lads have been talking, kind of coming up with the talk of the new head coach, because obviously it was also made official yesterday that Stephen Miles joined the coaching staff. I know we talked about it last week when we were out with our recording, so that got officially announced, and I think Stephen's been with the team all year, but they finally officially announced it yesterday. First team assistant coach. Those that are wondering, Stephen's been with Sheffield native, Sheffield United fan.
Yeah, he's got an interesting resume himself too. Go ahead, Garrett.
3-decade career. He's been an assistant coach for New England Revolution in MLS. Developmental coaching positions also have been held with LA Galaxy, which I think tied into the time Trevor was at LA Galaxy under Frank Yallop. The David Beckham Academy, Barnsley FC, which actually, if I'm not mistaken, Barnsley's where Neil Collins' Tampa Bay Rowdies manager is at now, I believe. And his hometown boyhood club, Sheffield United. And a great dude that like I said, I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of weekends ago to talk football. I think two things here to kind of close on this topic, and then we'll get to the weekend that was. We were all talking, the group of us here, about some head coaching people you have in mind. Both serious and not serious, because Jaime and Tam Ramos go together like Jaime and Pep Guardiola, or Jaime and Barcelona, or Jaime and Levski Sofia. Ask Jaime about that. Alan's laughing because I showed him that, and I told him about that today. Fuck. Who y'all got in mind? I know there's a name that a few of us have been talking about, both in our podcast crew and even some people that we know outside of it. So I want to get your guys' thoughts. Alan.
It was interesting during the meeting when the question came from from the one of the attendees that asking about the coaching search and how that might roll out, and Trevor said, "Well, now that the word's out, they're going to start getting solicitations like almost immediately. So pretty much the search starts this week." No, I think that there's kind of two different ways you can go. Typically, this is true of probably most clubs: internal or external. So promoting existing coaching staff, or finding someone that is a good fit for the club culture, and that is specifically what Trevor wants to do, is make sure that whoever comes in is a good fit for the type of structure that's been built over the last few years. I think we're all going to start monitoring pretty closely the ins and outs of the coaching carousel. I heard that there's one team that might be their coach might become available shortly. That might be an interesting candidate should that person put themselves forward. But and then there's the added dimension: someone with USL experience or someone with broader experience elsewhere. So I don't think there's anyone that's necessarily been anointed at this point. They're certainly the current assistant coaches, certainly I would put on the list, but I don't know that there's any intention of just of not doing a search. Let's put it that way.
Yep. Adam, how are you feeling? Do you want to name that name that we kind of were bringing up in light of the news that came out today?
Yeah. I'll name him. We're talking about Nate Miller.
Yeah.
For those that are wondering the name Nate Miller, Lansing United, former gaffer, and Ignite, 3-0 day, July 14th, 2017. Nate was the gaffer for that, who has since had some good gigs lately. Continue on, Adam.
I mean, this has been, the last couple of years of Detroit City FC reconciliation, right? I mean, we saw Devin Avumensa come over to City, former Michigan Stars captain. Dario Suarez this year, who was arguably public enemy number one for many, many years.
Now he's the fucking godfather.
Yep. Now he's the city savior. And Nate Miller, why not, right? I mean, he's probably, I'm assuming maybe he's going to be looking for a job here in the next couple of months when when the Loyal finally fold, as we heard that they're doing today without seemingly putting up any type of fight.
We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, and I've heard some rumblings, but it's still unfortunate.
So yeah, I guess he's one name that could potentially be out there, and I mean I'm wondering what the direction Trevor's going to go. Is he going to go for a younger guy, and where does one of his new assistants, Stephen Miles, kind of fit into all of this? And what's going to happen?
Needs too.
Yeah, and what's going to happen, and Eric as well. What's going to happen to a lot of these assistants? If they hire somebody new from the outside, are they going to have a place here? Is that going to be like, one of the deals here with Trevor, that, if you come in, you've got to retain these guys? I don't know what he's going to be able to work out in all of this, but I can only assume that any new head coach that he brings in, that head coach is going to want to compile his own staff as well.
Forge his own identity.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. We have to see what happens with that. Another thing as well that I thought is pretty interesting is the whole David Dwagey thing on the women's side. And we've been talking a little bit about the men here, but we also have to touch on the women's side as well, because that's something that Trevor is going to have control over. Where does Dwayne fit into all of this? Does Dwayne step down just so it's not weird, because Dwayne is an owner of Detroit City FC.
Yep, an OG day owner.
Yeah, I mean, does Dwayne step down just so, it doesn't kind of make like a weird relationship where Trevor has to oversee essentially his boss?
Right.
I mean,
I kind of think it's already been in a way done that, though, because Tiffany was elevated to assistant GM in a way for the women's team. So,
but you're further enhancing this situation, though.
Right.
When Trevor and Tiffany are now officially executives within not just the men's side or not just the women's side, but the whole entire sporting operation of Detroit City FC.
Including the academy.
Including the academy. And you have to wonder how that dynamic kind of works itself out. Is Dwayne going to step down? Is Trevor going to fire Dwayne? I doubt that happens. I mean, I'm sure it'll be, some type of
Christmas Carol situation come holiday.
Yeah.
Transitional things.
Exactly. And the last thing too, I've seen a lot of speculation too online, where individuals have been putting quotation marks around the term promotion when discussing what's happening now with Trevor and Tiffany James. Can we put that to bed a little bit here, because this is undoubtedly a promotion for Trevor James and Tiffany as well. I mean, anybody I think who's questioning that is, I don't think they understand what Trevor and Tiffany are moving into here. He's not just overseeing the men's side of the women. Trevor James is overseeing the entire, like I mentioned, the entire sporting operation of Detroit City FC.
So if there's football, he's involved in it.
Absolutely. When it comes to the team itself, the buck stops with Trevor James on any side of the sporting functionality of Detroit City FC. And you know what? If the powers that be within Detroit City weren't happy with the direction that Trevor and Tiffany had this club going, they wouldn't have offered this to them.
Absolutely. Right. Yes.
I mean,
yes. They had an opportunity to change direction if they so felt the need to. And there was absolutely no indication that was even considered.
Absolutely. Nope. It was an easy out, Alan. You didn't have to deal with any extra years on a contract or anything like that, or pay off the remaining balance, so to speak, of a contract. You chose to bring Tiffany and Trevor on for more years in an expanded role. I think it's asinine to think that this was anything but a promotion for those two. It absolutely 100% was. So you can put that to bed. It's still the Trevor and Tiffany James era in Detroit City FC, with a much more expanded role that they're going to be able to put their stamp on this club even more so moving forward.
And I think also
totally agree. Totally.
I also think the big thing too is it's the realization now that we need more people to a technical staff, regardless of the first teams, academies, because how many people do we, even in Trevor's thing, you can say Trevor was double dipping. Tiffany was definitely double dipping. And the people are covering roles, because even the club is even identifying that, not just on the footballing side, but also in the day-to-day operations of the club on the non-footballing side, where they're realizing that personnel is needed. The ranks need to be built. as we were announced yesterday, which I thought was also a cool thing of announcement of new hires.
Yeah, one thing, Garret. I just want to echo what you're saying. This was not only a step up for Tiffany and Trevor, but this was also the club very, very much making a step up in terms of how they run things, which was incredibly nice to see, considering some of the actions that we've seen over the course of the last few seasons. So,
and that is the case of we have grown incredibly much without really growing our staff. And when that happens, you're going to hit growing pains. And some growing pains are going to be worse than others. So I think it'll be very exciting. Also, to the new, I'm just dropping names, but both in the marketing that were announced. Welcome. Great to see also, especially in social media marketing manager, as well as I know Alex had mentioned that we were going to be hearing some more on that. Sean also briefly talked about the USL meetings in Colorado Springs and how there may be a format change for next year. Alan, I think we were going to briefly say we're going to talk about it later. Since we're already talking about USL stuff, do we just want to go, before we go into the city stuff, just talk about Loyal?
Oh, wait, yeah, sure. One thing before we move on to that, though. One last city thing, interesting tidbit that was dropped. The club could sign one or two more players.
Oh yeah,
for a stretch run. So I thought that was interesting. Go take it away, Alan.
Yeah,
San Diego Loyal.
Yeah, so there was a league announcement and a club announcement that San Diego Loyal would cease operations at the end of this season. Now, San Diego will be getting an MLS franchise, and they're currently in the prep phase of building that out. It was an open question when that MLS announcement occurred, whenever that was, a year ago or whatever, whether these two clubs could coexist. I know some of their supporters made statements like, we're in it, for the long haul. Unlike some other cities where the supporters group kind of didn't hesitate to jump on the MLS bandwagon.
St. Louis.
Oh yeah, I was going to say suggestion.
I was going to say Atlanta. I was going to say Atlanta.
Yeah, possibly. But the rationale offered up by the club and the league is a failure to find proper stadium facilities.
Viable near and long-term stadium solution.
So, maybe. But I think most people can read between those lines. I think that USL is going to have to confront this type of situation with a little bit more substance.
Aggression.
Yeah. Going forward, I think this is going to be, this isn't the first time this has occurred.
Dare I say, like the third time in the last five-ish years.
Yeah.
St. Louis
could still happen, in terms of Sacramento, who's been begging to get into MLS for a decade now.
Vegas, if they find somebody, because Bill Foley, I don't think is interested in bringing up MLS. He's talked about so if they get somebody else in Vegas, like the Davis family or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's no way the lights. There's no way the lights. If the Loyal don't make it, there's no way the lights do.
No.
Hell, we didn't think the lights were going to make it this year.
Yeah.
Right. So this. To me, this is a strategic challenge to USL, and USL did mention in their statement that they would be essentially moving the license to somewhere else, and that just, it's just more of this franchise model nonsense.
Yep.
That I hope one day we can be rid of and operate this league in a manner that is more typical of the sport around the world. Maybe that's asking too much, but the dream is alive. I'll hold the torch for that.
You know what, too? Go ahead, Garrett.
I was going to say, one of my Eintracht Frankfurt supporting buddies, producer of the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast, is in St. Louis. And big St. Louis, the USL side. To the point when he met up with Alan, you might have met him when we were in Indy last year with Chris Monroe, wearing his old St. Louis USL kit. I think he's become more accepting to an extent where there's an MLS side, but he bleeds blue and green more than the blue and red and everything there. And I feel for this because USL's been guilty of this too, with NISA sides, with MPSL, especially with the 2025 club announcements. The franchises, instead of existing teams, Milwaukee, Jacksonville, New Orleans, am I forgetting anybody else? I think the wild thing, I was having a big discussion with one of my coworkers who just, our operations head, just went to his first city game on Saturday. He came into soccer through Ted Lasso and welcomed to Wrexham. And I think what the wild thing is, as much as we might have not on this podcast, but we might have had some different banner on Lasso or Wrexham. But the one thing that Lasso and Wrexham has done to people that are becoming fans of soccer through those routes in the United States is it's opening the eyes of what promotion and relegation means to these, like, for example, what it does to a town like Wrexham, or what it does to, like, Notts County, or what it does to these things. And people want that in their town once they really get into soccer, other than the messy nonsense and everything like that. And I think a lot of that may have influenced USL to be like, hey, let's start learning about this, talking about trying to make promotion relegation. But I think the Loyal announcement further magnifies the need that something has to be identified in USL to make themselves stand out in a way that they can survive. If anyway, be an alternative to MLS.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's going to be consumed by them.
Absolutely, Garrett, because it's getting to the point right now where you can't talk anymore. You actually have to do.
Right.
And yes, this is San Diego. You know, the club has been around only since
2019.
2019. But it was a pretty well-known club. I mean, they had Landon Donovan, part of the ownership group. It was
DeAndre Edlin.
Who was a coach last year. They were pretty successful these last couple of years. They had a seemingly good supporter base. And what happened with all of this? USL, and look, I don't want to sit here and defend or make it seem like I'm defending USL, because I'm not. USL is as much of the problem, within U.S. soccer as MLS or anybody else that, sits there and favors a closed system. But what happened? I mean, you had USL seemingly put up zero fight in you would think would be a relatively easy market. San Diego isn't a huge market. And I only ask this because what's going to happen when MLS eventually brings the fight to bigger markets? Mm-hmm. What happens when they bring the fight to not only bigger markets, but, more established, more, I don't want to say flagship clubs, but we know what could be coming next. We could see the Phoenixes, all of a sudden have MLS knocking at their doorstep, which we've already heard Phoenix's name being thrown around, not the Rising, but Phoenix as a market, whether or not, MLS is going to go in there and try to take over the Phoenix Rising name, or if they're just going to go in there like they did in San Diego and just, establish a new franchise and just kill off the other one like they did in St. Louis. Another one, Tampa Bay. MLS already had their shot in Tampa Bay in the beginning. There's no saying that they won't go in and try to do that again. Tampa Bay is a top 15 market in the country. They're a top 15 media market who's growing and does not have an MLS franchise right now. And again, this isn't.
And that's also USL HQ.
Exactly, and this isn't some lesser known USL club. This isn't Loudoun or anything like that. That's the Tampa Bay fucking Rowdies, you guys. That's a historic club that I'm sure MLS would love to get their hands on. And then us sitting here in Detroit, we beat them off in 2016, 2017.
Yeah,
we managed to win that fight. You can sure as hell bet that the MLS is going to be coming again for the Detroit market. And I think I mentioned this in our chat. The only difference from 2016, 2017 to potentially now or within the next few years is they're probably not going to try to get or establish an entirely new franchise here in the area. They're probably going to try to buy off the Detroit City FC name and go that route, given how much Detroit City has grown since then. And as any diehard Detroit City FC fan knows, who's been there before, if that's the case, Detroit City has died. It's not the same club. It would be one of those Phoenix franchises. It's not the same thing. So, what's USL going to do? Like you mentioned, Garrett, the time for talk is over. If you're going to survive in soccer wars, quote unquote, you've got to stand out amongst the rest of the upper tier landscape that is US soccer. If you don't, you're going to die, and at some point, we absolutely 100% will all be MLS at some point.
Yeah, the I was just looking it up. The metro population in San Diego is 3.3 million people.
5 times the size of almost.
You can't tell me that 3 million people can't support more than one club. Mm-hmm. That is such MLS 1.0 thinking that, if we had 2 clubs here or 4 clubs here, it would divide the market so much nobody would make any money. We'd all fail. I think that's just that is such a fallacy, and it has done incredible damage to the game here. That type of thinking, and it's just defend franchises. That's all that the purpose of that kind of thinking supports. So if USL is going to try to separate themselves from that kind of business model, they've got to be able to do that. They've got to be able to stake their territory, build it out, and not worry about pins and maps.
Not only that, Alan, I saw this point brought up today on Twitter, and I thought it was a very interesting and good point. If USL is throwing out the promotion relegation idea, if they're throwing that out there, why not just have the Loyal relegate themselves to USL League One and play in League One?
And the Charlotte Independence did that in
Charlotte Independence did. Yep.
We moved in because of it. I think that's the spot that we took.
and we see North Carolina moving back up for next season. And that's already a hotbed right now. I mean, you already have an MLS franchise in Charlotte right now.
Right.
So why not do that? I mean, why not do that? If it was truly about a stadium thing, you bump yourself down to USL League One. PLS for stadium requirements isn't as drastic. It's not as elevated as it is for Tier 2.
Or you even merge with Albion. Or you merge with Albion.
You sit there and you work it out.
Yeah.
That's why I think that this whole thing is just such bullshit. It's USL, it's the Loyals sitting there and rolling over. And I've also seen some other theories out there on why they did that. I don't want to mention anything though that isn't true or anything like that. But it's such bullshit on USL's part that it's going this way and that it's come to this for the San Diego Loyal, because we can shit talk and we can shit post all we want on social media, but when it comes down to it, if we're actually getting serious about this, it's such a loss for the viability as a whole for U.S. soccer. Something like this isn't a good thing. It's a very bad thing for U.S. soccer. It just weakens the system even more, and it's not a good thing.
What it suggests is that the only important part of U.S. soccer is MLS.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
And I mean, if that's it, I don't think that's true. We all don't think that's true.
Nope.
But if the people who support the game here think it's true, some do, but in general, if people start thinking that's true, then there will be only MLS someday down the road.
Yep. Here's a fun fact from the article that was written on it today from the San Diego Union Tribune. And this is something that I'm going to quote here verbatim. The Loyal join, and the article was written by Martin Ziegler too. So it was a good read if you get a chance to check it out.
I've seen his stuff.
Yeah. The Loyal, let me see here, joined a double-figure list of failed pro soccer clubs in San Diego, going back to the Toros in the 1960s, Jaws in the 70s, and Outdoor Soccer's SOCK ERS in the 80s. There have also been the Flash twice, Pumitas, Boca, Gauchos, Top Guns. We remember 1904 from our Nisa days that merged into Albion, and Spirit. Even the indoor soccers have shut down a couple of times before being resurrected. And nationally, according to one count, which is based in an article from WorldSoccerTalk.com, we're now at more than 150 pro soccer clubs at different levels have folded over the past 30 years in the United States. This is not growth. So all we can do right now, as much as it sucks, especially when we see somebody that we opened the season up this year at be their last season, when they're a team that, when I think of USL Championship from the Western Conference, Loyal's a name there, our top 5 name, the way I see it. It sucks. I feel for the people that, did spend time and energy in all those things. And I know a pandemic can fuck things up to a big extent. We notice that right now. But this could be anyone if we're not careful.
Yep.
So make the most out of your situation, whatever that is. And who winds up with the San Diego spot, we'll see. Could tie into, obviously, if there's a format change for next season. So we'll know more. But in the meantime, let's get to what took place, because we got to talk about what's coming ahead, especially now in this post. We are going to be entering the end of the Trevor James coaching era and the sporting director role. Detroit City was on national television Saturday night, this past Saturday, the 19th of August, 7:30 p.m., taking on Las Vegas Lights. Um, Although Pato Mateo Faz is injured, he did make a homecoming. I know he swung by to the supporter stand to say hi. I hadn't gotten there yet, so I think some people were able to see him. So kudos to that. Great on Pato for doing that. Maxi, I think, even wore a Pato shirt during the handshake line, so that was cool. But you two know this. Many others know this. We were talking a bit, and I think we got a bit. We were on fire, I think, last week. And also shout out to again, thanks also for JR for filling in with us last week. Frustrated, we were wondering what we were going to see, and we were wondering if the team shape for Detroit City was going to stay the same, which for the most part it did. However, at the time of 6:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, I had just finished eating dinner, and I was about to get ready to do the 25-ish minute drive. Might have been 30 because I think I hit more fucking lights. To Keyworth, the Playfair. Starting lineup came out. We had, was it 3 changes? 3 changes, right? 3 changes? Or is it 4 changes? Lijop was out due to injury we talked about, suffering against Charleston Battery, so Dominic Gasso stepped in. Stephen Carroll was back from Ireland, which meant he slotted in. Devin Almumensa stayed in the lineup, moving over to the left flank. So on the bench was and Connor Rutz returned to the starting lineup. Am I forgetting anyone? I think I got everybody. Yes, I got. Oh, Skaggy Simonson, duh, came back in the starting lineup at the expense of Dario Suarez, Richard Ballard, Brent Levi's. Fellas, was I the only one that was red hot about that, or were you all feeling similar things about that? Give me your mindset when you take a look at that team shape at whether it was 6:30 or any time before kickoff. Adam, you go first on that.
I didn't know about the shape until you told me, Garrett. My day is well. My time is usually pretty packed before kickoff, so I really didn't have an opportunity at the time to look at it. And then when you came in and told me, I guess I was shocked, but I guess I really shouldn't have been, given what Trevor likes to do sometimes.
Yep.
I was upset a little by it because it was a match that, they ended up winning the match, but I figured it would have been one of those opportunities or one of those situations where you need the win, so you put your best starting 11 out there.
Yep.
And I thought what they put out there wasn't their best starting 11. I thought that they were having a lot of success with the shape they had been running. Obviously, in hindsight, everything worked out. Ended up winning 1-0. Skaggy ended up getting the goal. Connor actually played pretty well in that match. They stuck to, I think more importantly though, they stuck to a game plan that was, and we talked about a little bit about this, Garrett, where they weren't doing that over the top bullshit that they like to do. And they end up coming on on the short end of things. They kept the ball on the ground. They were working it up the wings.
At least they mixed it up, which was good. They needed to mix it up.
Yeah, and it turned out well at the end. I think even still, despite the win, they still didn't look all that great. They don't get away with playing like that against better teams.
Yep.
But it didn't matter in the end. They got the win. They got what they needed to get, and we move on to Birmingham this coming weekend.
Alan, your thoughts on the starting 11 and then how it played out. So,
yeah, I was surprised It seemed like it was reverting to the previous, if not the precise lineups, but just in terms of formation. So I thought that was a bit of a step backwards. Whether there was some reasons for doing that, I don't know. I mean, we're not privy to what happens on the practice pitch during the week, but to not start Dario in the game like that just seemed odd to me. And we did get the 3 points, which was absolutely crucial, but I would call it an unconvincing win. And it certainly hasn't settled my stomach for the matches coming up.
So we talked about it a little bit in the recap on Saturday, kind of went in depth about the play in the guest piece I wrote for Word About Shapes. It was kind of a really city goal in a way. Nate gives the ball to Reese. Reese pumps the ball in the midfield. Bounces off defender. Maxey wins the ball. Heavy touch goes straight to Vegas center back. Vegas center back kicks it back to Zaluga, who's the Las Vegas goalkeeper. Maxey, one thing that also was good, the team was pressing. Team was not pressing against Charleston. Team was on the pressing thing more. Maxey keeps his pressing going, but not full on. So he's kind of going at a moderate pace, but keeping on him, forcing Zaluga to feed it over to Vegas's left central back. Vegas's left central back is kind of caught in a situation where he is staring at his own goalkeeper and kind of on an angle. So he can't really, so he should be able to, if he has enough time, get the ball and then turn to then figure out what option he's got. Except one problem. Connor Rutz, and to his credit, this was a very great Connor Rutz trait here. Using the engine to get in, to take the angle away there, and to close in on, it was a Swiss center back that Vegas played, but I'm forgetting the name. Forcing the center back to pass the ball back to Zaluga. Unfortunately, it's not a hot ball, and Maxey is still at the edge of the box like a shark. Gets the ball, goes out to the right-hand side. The keeper's briefly in no man's land and is now trying to get back to the goal. Skaggy feeds it to Skaggy in open range. Skaggy fucking buries it. That thankfully turns out to be the game. We listened to Trevor in the club last night, and even Skaggy said this in the post-match interview with us. They know that performance wasn't their best on Saturday. I'm glad everyone's aware of that. But it worked. We needed the 3 points. We got the 3 points. We want more? Of fucking course we do. But now's the time and the opportunity to get more. As we get to Sunday. Also, can we talk briefly, Adam, do we want to make notes about how hilarious some of the stuff was? Shout out to Skaggy. Great job interviewing. Skaggy Simonson, the first player I think I've ever seen to fully do a complete clove change post-match to then do recap stuff. Note to self, if you play for the club and you have to do something, keep your kit top on or else you'll get sent back.
No, that was hilarious. Yeah. Great. I know we're sitting here waiting like forever to get Skaggy.
Have they interviewed him? No.
Yeah, no. I look back because I was talking to some people, still kind of tearing down in the stands. And I remember looking back and seeing like Kyle Clayton. I don't know if it's Mackey too, just kind of like laying at center pitch. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, they haven't even gotten to their interview yet.
I think Michael Bryant was done. Shake everybody's photos in that. That's how much we were waiting. That's how much we were waiting.
Yep. And like I say, I see Kyle Clayton like laying there. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why? They haven't interviewed anybody yet. What's going on?
Because we get second right. Club gets first. If it's somebody we have naturally club goes first and then we follow.
Yeah, usually we're the last. Even if like Nolan's there too, we go after.
Oh yeah.
We're the absolute we're the runt of the litter at the the last at the food dish.
Dude, they give us media for us bums to do what we do. I'm taking it home.
Yeah, I know. But then Skaggy comes out wearing a hoodie and jeans, like all showered and everything.
He definitely the hair was messy. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, Kyle Clayton sent him back to go get a kit to put on.
It was a clean kit top, but it was still a kit top because we were talking to Tiffany while I was getting done.
Yeah, so if you go and you watch that video last week of Skaggy wearing the kit, he's actually wearing jeans, with the kit instead of. And then Garret was nice enough to give him the option though of whether or not he wants to wear a kit or if he wants to change back into his hoodie. So he decided to go back into his hoodie. But yeah, it was all good.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Like Skaggy Simonson, cool dude. Great to see him back in, rolling, confident. But like we mentioned, they know that it worked, but they need to be better. And the opportunity to be better is 9 games left starting this Sunday. It's not just Monster Truck thing. It's not just AEW All In at Wembley Stadium during the day. It's Detroit City traveling to Birmingham to take on the Legion, 5 p.m. So it's not too late on your Sunday. A Birmingham Legion team who their last 2 games have won 3-1 last night against Tulsa. They fell behind early on, but then Nico Brett with a hat trick. And then on the weekend, they did a 2-0 against Louisville. So Birmingham did the job that we wanted because right now that means as of this time of recording, there's still a 2-point gap between us and the last playoff spot, currently held by Tulsa at 29 points. Also level on points is Miami FC. Tulsa travels to New Mexico United on Saturday night. Miami hosts Tampa Bay Rowdies. Both of those don't get any wins, and a win by Detroit City puts them back at 8. Birmingham are currently in 6th place, 11 wins, 11 losses, 3 ties. 2 wins, a draw, 2 losses. 2 wins in a row, but the last 3 before that was 2 losses and a draw. Definitely been fluctuating a bit, some injury changes, rolling everything on that. How are we feeling? And going ahead into this, is there anything we're expecting to see, or are we just like, fuck it, let's see what rolls out and go from there? Alan, start us off.
Well, if you had asked me before yesterday, I would have said I have absolutely no idea what will happen. Given the news, which I assume the team probably found out slightly earlier than we did, but probably not a lot earlier, I would think. Certainly not like before game day, I would think. What effect is that gonna have on the squad? Is that going to kind of open the door to, okay, I'm playing for my spot now, like even more than you would normally see at the end of the season? Or do you have some guys thinking, well, I came here because of Trevor, and now it'll be somebody else, and, maybe I like that or don't like that. So that just throws a wrinkle into it. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact because I think one thing our players have shown us, that they put their heads down and do the work, for the most part. But it will be interesting to see if that perhaps lights a fire under certain people who, want. The difference in the past, though, is like most of our players have contracts now, or they all have contracts, and some of them have multi-year contracts, which is relatively new experience for us.
Plus club options, plus incentives, plus
so there's a lot more going on in terms of long-term squad construction. Now we know that in USL, those contracts often get modified over time and et cetera, and players come and go. And so I don't know. I just kind of bring it up to bring it up. I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to like change the direction of things, drastically, but we'll have to see.
Adam, Legion have scored 36, allowed 41, compared to our 18 goals scored and the 24 we've allowed, which is still the second fewest amount of goals allowed in USL, tied for second with Pittsburgh. And I'm looking at like the losses that, like before the draw against Sacramento on the 12th when we were playing Charleston, Indy had lost 2-1, lost 2-1, lost 4-0. We've played them 3 times in the last 2 years. We've won 1-0 both times at Keyworth. We won 2-1 last year in Birmingham when they were red hot. Is this another one of those things where we'll 1-0 is right up our alley here, and that's the plan? Or because they've allowed 41 goals this year, is there a chance for us to maybe try to open things up a little bit?
For some reason, we always play Birmingham well.
Enough at least to get the win.
Exactly, and that always kind of worries me at this point, because is Birmingham now due for a win? And yeah, Birmingham is in any scenario too that we've seen so far with Birmingham, City has been able to overcome it. Yep. We saw them earlier in the year when they were playing like dog shit in league play, but we're making a run in US Cup or US Open Cup, and we beat them. Last year they were on a hot streak, and we ended up beating them. Last year too, I think at some point they weren't playing well earlier in the season, and we still beat them.
We were second best that day, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Friday, ESPN Deportes.
Yep, and even now, which I thought was low key one of the greatest goals in City history.
Route one, but yeah.
Oh yeah, Pato to Hopino, that was incredible. But you look at this year too, and I don't know, City may be kind of lucking out with Birmingham, because earlier on in the season they got Birmingham on a short week because Birmingham played Charlotte FC on a Wednesday. And
no subs if I recall that game, right?
I can't. What, for City?
Birmingham against Charlotte that day. I don't think they made any subs that match.
Yeah, I can't remember, but nonetheless, they still got them on a short week. And then this week we're getting them on a short week as well, coming off last night's win against Tulsa. Thank you very much, Birmingham. But we've got to capitalize this Sunday as well. Still somewhat of a short week. Obviously, we're giving on a Sunday instead of a Saturday, but still.
Birmingham matinee, they're the best at it.
Yep, we got to see if that's something that that City can take advantage of, because, yes, Birmingham does give a lot of goals. However, they still have a lot of firepower up front, whether it's Juan Agodello, whether it's Prosper Castim, whether it's Enzo Martinez, or
they just picked
Nico
up
Brett.
Tyler. They just picked up recently too. Who did they get recently? Tyler Freeman, I think, was a name that they've gotten. I know they're banged up too. I mean, Tyler Pasher's injured for them right now, which I don't mind, because he can be a nightmare on the wing, although Devin kept him at bay.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's something that City has always, for the very most part, done very, very well. I mean, I think Juan Agodello is still in Stephen Carroll's pocket.
Something about U.S. team strikers playing Stephen Carroll, just
I just
Zassi Zardes.
Yeah, they I think it was Kassim that had that banger of a goal last year in Birmingham. So yeah, City has to be careful. Birmingham is a good club, good team, and this isn't. And like we alluded to earlier, if City comes out playing like they did against Las Vegas, against Birmingham, especially on the road, it doesn't matter if it was a short week or not for Birmingham, they're going to lose.
At least be on the back foot for most of that match.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what type of formation Trevor ends up coming back with in this one. And it's interesting too that you mentioned as well, Alan, about the mindset of the club heading into this game, considering the big announcement that we had, last night. How are the players going to approach that? I mean, Trevor's still going to, have, essentially complete control over the club next year. So I don't know,
Right.
maybe that alleviates some nerves, or, whether or not some of these guys are going to be offered contracts next year who already don't have contracts. Yep. But still, I'm sure there is a different mindset for some of these guys as we enter in the final stretch of the season, especially if you don't have a contract for next year. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, this is a game City can certainly win, but they need to play well. And I know that that's kind of pointing out the obvious. That's kind of one of Red's little things where he's like, yeah, we got to score more goals than the other team.
That's a Ray Rakosiism if I've ever heard one myself. Shout out to my buddy who always says that sarcastically.
But they've got to go in. They can't take this one off like I think they did Las Vegas in some sense. So yeah, it's a big match. It's a match they need to win too. If they win, then all of a sudden they are looking
better.
They're looking better heading into that final stretch of the year.
Yeah, it would be nice for a change to actually capitalize on the good results around us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so many times this season, if you want to pinpoint something that's aggravated me during the season, it's the weeks where we've had results go our way around the table and we drop points. It just the picture could be so different, and not that we needed to score 100 goals. If we had just picked up a few points here and there that we dropped and got those good results around us, we would be in good shape right now. And it's just that didn't happen. So
we saw it. Yeah, I was just going to say, Alan, we saw it a few weeks ago when we were in Oakland. How well we played against Oakland, and we ended up, leaving points on the table there. And I'm trying to go back and see that week in and of itself, and I think I remember us, kind of missing
I think the game in Tulsa, where that was a little more difficult game for us, but.
We were up in the
I distinctly remember that
away.
all the results that game week went in our favor, and we got beat. So
yeah, Indy ended up losing to Lou City, and Tulsa ended up losing to the Rowdies. Miami won that against Loudoun, but Tulsa and Indy, those two right there, that could have been huge for us, and we missed the boat on that. So we can't let that happen again this week.
Legion have been playing a 4-2-3-1 lately, similar to what the City team shape was on Saturday. This seems to be the lineup that they've rolled with the last two matches here. Matt Van Okel in goal. Back four of Smith, Krognall, Kavita, and Mensah. Krognall and Kavita, I think, were their back line last year and earlier this year. Corcoran and Enzo Martinez as their holding two midfielders. Juan Aguadello as a right winger. Prosper Kasim in the center. who put a fucking banger against us after Connor's goal last August. Diba Niguego in the left wing. I apologize if I messed that name up. And Nico Brett up top. Nico Brett scored 4 goals in his last 2 games. And then on the subs bench, you got Tyler Freeman, a couple of other options that they can go with. Do we see the same starting 11, do you think, going in? Or do you think maybe it was a good opportunity to put some rest of bodies against Vegas and you put like Dario or Ballard back in?
That was my assumption as far as that lineup went. Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping that was the case, that you're kind of maybe taking the opportunity against a lesser team to rest some of your top guys and still managing to get the win. So, I mean, my expectation is, yes, we will see Dario back in. We'll probably end up seeing Ben Morris back in, although I'm a little intrigued still by,
on the
moving
wing.
Dario. Yeah, or moving Dario up top and then having Skaggy kind of be a creator for you. I'm expecting Levi's to be back in there. And I don't know what's going on with Lai. Hopefully he's able to make his way back into the lineup, just because we know how vital he's been for us.
Yep.
So who knows? I guess, damn it. I know he wouldn't have answered the question, but that's probably what we should have asked Trevor last night.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have, I don't know if he'd given us a full-on honest
He
answer.
wouldn't have, but
he might have.
Oh, we're monitoring his situation. Yeah. So.
He did say he did.
We'll see how he's doing.
He did not give. He went full on gun blazing, saying he was going to looking to bring in another player or two before the end of the season. So there's.
Yeah, I was surprised that he offered that up, because that's like throwing red meat out there.
That's juicy. Oh man, I can't have any red meat right now. My LDL's too high. Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. I thought Reese Williams. If you take away the Skaggy goal on Saturday against Vegas, I think the best player on the pitch for us was Reese Williams against Las Vegas.
Yeah,
it could be a
good game. Yeah.
It could be a very good opportunity for him to run in spaces and on that. But yeah, I mean, I agree with Adam in the sense we need to know the why. We got a Nolan Bianchi piece that should be coming out anytime soon, probably, I would think. Now, especially considering we have an extra day this weekend. So be on the lookout for that. We hear anything random or new, we'll drop something on on our YouTube channel, which obviously will then put to the Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you want to call it these days. With that, boys, speak peace time. Adam, why don't you start us off tonight?
First, I want to kind of amplify the Play Proud Common Goal initiative. I think it's an incredibly good initiative that is being headed up by Detroit City supporter Emma Wall. So she's going to have 2 more meetings tomorrow night and Friday, actually, which will be
7 p.m.
Hopefully be the time this podcast comes out. So Friday, 7 p.m. and then Saturday, this coming Saturday at 2 p.m. Both of those are going to be at the clubhouse. So please, supporters, anybody out there listening, please, 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 if you have the time, if you have the opportunity, go and check those out. This is a very, very, very important project that's being undertaken by supporters, by the club, that is going to, essentially, bottom line, help not only the club and, but supporters in general, just learn how to be, a more welcoming space for marginalized communities. So please, if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, go and check these out, because the representatives from the club, supporters, are going to be flying out and taking part in another conference for all of this. I believe in Albuquerque in a couple of weeks, and then there's going to be more happening after that. But we also had the opportunity to talk with Alex Wright and Pamela and TJ from the club the other day and interview them about this. And that podcast, that 451 podcast, is going to be coming out hopefully next week sometime. So stay tuned for that. And then you can also check out Garrett's kind of recap for that over on our YouTube page or our social media accounts. So please make sure you check that out. And and I know this isn't a wrestling podcast, but I also want to put out my condolences for the passing of Wyndham Rotunda, better known as Bray Wyatt, which that hit me hard. I called up Garret actually as soon as I found out, and Bray Wyatt was one of my favorites, and that was a tough one. That was a tough one. Such a great talent within the pro wrestling industry. But other than that, NGS War Bus, get your tickets. Coming up September 30th, we take over Indy, and the next club that's going to be begging Don Garber for a spot in MLS. So let's make sure we go down there, tell them all to fuck off, and get a city win, and everybody gets to make their way back on the bus. So,
hell yeah, Alan, your turn, bud.
When I was first getting into soccer, later in my life, not as a youth, but as an adult, with limited sporting interests prior to that. One of the things that kind of got me there was reading the Nick Hornby book, Fever Pitch. And one of the quotes, it's a famous quote, everyone says it over and over and over, but it struck me at the time, and it still strikes me as so true, that the natural state of a football fan is bitter disappointment, no matter what the score. And I think we've kind of seen that a little bit this season. We've been enormously fortunate in the success that City's had on the pitch since day one. And, there's been ups and downs, but not quite like this season.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And, but strangely, after the announcement yesterday, which took me by shock, I was shocked by that, that I actually felt optimistic about the club's future, because it did seem like an investment in the future, and that we're going to get some new blood coming in terms of a head coach who's going to, obviously be working with Trevor in terms of signings and things like that. So it's adding another football mind to the brain trust. And I think that's going to help us. It's going to help us a lot. And whether the current coaching staff stays or there's new folks, again, that we've got this, we're building it out, making it bigger and better. I think sometimes we get caught up in the box score, and I am actually feeling pretty good, even though this season's not going to be anything to kind of point to with a lot of pride, but I am feeling good about the future. So I guess that's my point.
and I know this is a topic for another night, but given the success, especially during the Trevor James era, and where that's kind of already put an already significant lower league soccer club, because Detroit City is arguably the most well-known and maybe biggest lower league soccer club from a popularity standpoint. How attractive is this job going to be? Because we don't have the facilities. We don't have the facilities that, a Loose City has or a Tampa Bay Rowdies have. So I wonder because I know a lot of people kind of point to, and this is something that Garret and I were ironically talking about a little bit last Sunday. And wait, no, not last. Was it last Sunday? I think it was last Sunday. Yeah,
I think it was one of our firesides. That would have been Sunday.
Yeah. I was driving home from an NGS Cares meeting, and again, I don't want to stretch this out too much because I think this is actually a good topic once, for a broader show. But again, the thought and we had no idea that this was going to happen. How attractive is this position, within the lower league soccer landscape? And that's it. Like, given everything that has happened since 2012, really since 2019, how attractive is this coaching vacancy going to be?
Well, it got us Trevor James.
It got us Trevor James, yeah, and
who's Trevor James going to get for us? Yeah.
No, that's a good point, Alan. I mean, you got a guy who had a vast, he had a shit ton of MLS experience. He had experience, over in Europe.
We're working with some of the biggest names in the game, Sir Bobby Robson. I mean, it's like, where do you go from that? I mean, it's just like this wasn't some National League 5th tier experience in England. This was top of the line experience in Europe, in England, having the opportunity to, scout and coach some of the best players in the world. I can't remember if Sean Mann actually said this or not, but he actually had David Beckham on his resume listed. I can't remember that for sure. I thought I remember Sean saying that. So Sean, if you're listening, I apologize if that wasn't the case. But I could have sworn I heard him say that before. But yeah, who would have thought that we would have got Trevor James and a guy with that type of knowledge, that kind of experience, and you could only wonder what type of coach Trevor's going to be able to tap for the men's side, and what he's going to be able to do moving forward with this club. So,
yeah, I want to go echo Adam's statements that he made about the Play Proud initiative and the collective roundtables that are taking place tomorrow, Friday, the 25th of August, 7 p.m., Saturday, the 26th, 2 p.m., Detroit City Clubhouse. We also included in our YouTube video, both in the description as well as our Twitter thread about it, where you can go to learn more. The Play Proud section of Common Goals website, as well as how to reach out to Pamela. Just if you want to know some more information, right now these are the three. More to potentially resume after the Albuquerque conference, and there's a chance that some of these sessions may also be not just in person but potentially virtual. But that really depends on interest. So highly encourage if you get the opportunity, just because it is the key purpose is making sure that whether we're at Keyworth or whether we're at the long run, that going to Detroit, being in the stands of Detroit City is as inviting of a place and as welcome of a place for marginalized communities and for all people.
Yep.
And something that I think I'll give Alex right. I think he brought this up last night. Managing in the club's 12th year, managing the thing of the two parts of trying to be a sustainably healthy, financially sustainable, healthy club, while also being the club that we've been socially and continue to be and aim to be. So, highly recommend them. Shout out to, and also to like Pamela, to Alex, and to TJ for the for taking the time to sit and chat with us, with Adam, Jam, and I about about the initiatives and how the things being done on the club end, on the community end, and on the supporter end. So it was also, what else am I trying to think about here? Shout out to Brew Detroit again. Great. It was good times last night. Good to be back there. You know, and they kind of filled us in on how they're navigating things these days. So, well done to everyone there. Trying to think what else on here, city and club wise. I want to echo Adam's thoughts in the wrestling. Yesterday we lost, for those that may have been a wrestling fan older than 2010, 2020, if you remember the late 70s and the 80s and the 90s, or if you remember the movie Roadhouse, there was a guy named Terry Funk, who had some acting roles, had some, just a guy that always evolved. He passed away yesterday at the age of 79. So to somebody who's other than wrestling fans, to somebody that paved the road for many generations, thank you for all that you've done, and all the best to his family. And as Adam said, to the Rotunda family for Wyndham Rotunda Bray Wyatt's passing, I did see that. What was it? It was, I think he had COVID earlier this year, and it was a heart attack. 36 years old. As somebody who's about to turn 36 in a few months, this is something that I've talked about this a handful of times this year. Make the most out of every situation that you can, because who knows? We can't decide the future. So, shout out to my brother from another mother and City Away Day travel buddy and John Bahoski, making it back to Keyworth for the first time in a couple months since, his health scare. All the best to him on the continued road to recovery. All the best to Josh Prentice on the road to recovery. Anybody that's struggling, we wish the best for you. And keep fighting, keep stepping. And as we go down to Sweet Home, Alabama on Sunday, and the land of the white barbecue sauce, we have 9 games left that now take on a whole different meaning with last night's announcements. One eye, ear, aim for the present. One eye, ear, aim for the future. I have no idea how Sunday's going to wind up, how the rest of these games are going to wind up. All I know is what we've been talking about a lot this year. Win, lose, or draw. City overall. And we go onward. Love y'all.
City till I die, say hi to the bad guy. Pretty gritty in the key, you see our flag fly, chin check, hashtag we came to sweep the leg. With all disrespect, the rules will bruise your head. 2012 the scene pop, we came to clean clocks. Your team is dream drop, we gave some mean knocks. Stomping on the comp, yeah we chomping on the bit. Many came and went, but they ain't stopping none of it. Community built, community owned. Roasting foes coast to coast, leave your hope postponed. Spirit of Detroit, lemons the lemonade, yeah,